The Tao of Self-Confidence, episode 906. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. You can now purchase The Tao of Self-Confidence, a guide to moving beyond trauma and awakening the leader within on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, Walmart, Indigo, and other major book retailers. Get your copy today. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to The Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have an amazing lady on the show today. It's a great way to end Filipino American History Month. She is actually the Minister of Small Business for the government of Canada, and I'm really excited to have her on today, being a Filipina in a government position in Canada. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Rechie Valdez. Rechie, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sheena, for having me on today. So I'm Rechie Valdez. I'm currently the Member of Parliament for Mississauga-Streetsville. So I represent one of 338 ridings in Canada. But in addition to that responsibility, I'm also as you mentioned, the Federal Minister of Small Business as well. Truly an honor to be here to have a chat with you. And, I just want to thank you for all that you're doing to help empower and inspire many, many women and help develop self-confidence. And you talk about it in your book all the time, how much we struggle internally, whether it's our upbringing or otherwise. So I just want to say thank you, Sheena, for all that you do. So a little bit about me. My parents, as you may be aware, they immigrated from the Philippines to a little city called Kitwe, Zambia, Africa. And then before coming here to Canada when I was 9 years old. And my parents kind of much like many Asian parents, predisposed me to say they wanted me to be an engineer growing up. And so I kind of dedicated so much of my life to that one single path. And I kind of was really taken aback when I got to university, and the thing I was working so hard to do was not what I actually wanted, or it wasn't who I was. And it was really that profound moment of going, okay, wow, all those years I worked towards this one thing, but it's not what I wanted to do. So finally pivoted to something I wanted to do thereafter, with the fear I had of disappointing my parents and having them disown me. Eventually went into corporate banking, did that for 15 years. And, I think many of your guests who've come on your show know this, that, you worked the 9 to 5, I had security and benefits and all that stuff, Sheena. I had, at that point in the 15 years, I met my husband. I had 2 kids along the way. And again, I thought I was going to be a lifer, to be honest, at the bank. And then when my daughter Cassidy turned 1, I decided to bake her first birthday cake. And then out popped up this beautiful, in my opinion, 2-tier pink vanilla fondant cake. And it really gave me an opportunity to discover something that I kind of pushed down inside me for many years, which was my creative passion. I knew I was a creative, but because it wasn't kind of popular in my family, I didn't really pursue it until that moment. So this pivotal moment for me is so important for my life journey, because I got a chance to discover my creative passion. I became an entrepreneur, started my first baking business, and, while working 9 to 5, making dinner with the kids, putting them to bed, baking in the wee nights of the evening, and then delivering on weekends between grocery shopping and hockey practice. I did the hustle. And that hustle really introduced me to something more important than anything else, which was community. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you're out there hustling, you're getting your brand out there, and there's this whole other world outside of the 9 to 5, right? And I didn't know it until I got a chance to push myself out there. I met amazing women entrepreneurs, like-minded individuals. That community that I was seeing outside really inspired me to be okay, how can we work together? How can we, have more representation? And so lo and behold, I decided to put my name on the ballot in 2021. Didn't think I was going to win, to be honest. It was just more this goal that I wanted to make sure there was more representation. So I did it. I won. And then, I've been in this role now as a member of parliament for 3 years and a minister of small business for 1 year. So it's been truly a blessing. But I share this, Sheena, because if you can imagine, this was not life is not about a start and an end. It's really about the journey. And I always talk about my story because it's definitely non-conventional, right? Like you have many guests who have many different life journeys, but mine is definitely not a conventional journey. And it really is a message to folks out there that, if you can kind of push yourself to be a little audacious, to believe in yourself, and to pursue the thing you want to do, like you can pretty much achieve anything.
I love that. And I love just your journey. And I know as, coming to Canada from the Philippines, our parents just expect us to work a 9 to 5 job. And, that's their definition of success. Not that is wrong. It's all that they know, right? Not realizing we can do other things, especially being in Canada. There's so much opportunity to forge your own path, to do something unconventional, kind of like what you did, right? And then it led you to being in this amazing position where you get to support small businesses. So I'm really grateful that you've been able to trailblaze that so that other women can see that they can also be in government positions. And the need for having more women leaders in government is so important. It really does help the whole world in a bigger scale than we realize. So thank you so much. And Richie, what's your favorite self-confidence quote?
Well, I'm actually going to share what I tell my daughter, and I've been telling her since she was like born. I always tell my daughter this. My favorite time to do it is after I read a bedtime story. Now she's a lot older and I don't get a chance to read her bedtime story. But before bed, I always tell her the same thing, which is you are beautiful, you are loved, and you can do anything you want to do. I've repeated this for many years, and I can tell you that the world that my daughter lives in now is not the same as the world I lived in because I didn't have those positive messages in my life. I actually had the opposite messages, Sheena. I had messages that were very negative and that pushed my confidence down. So this self-confidence quote isn't just a quote. It's something that I believe in, and it's something that I always want my daughter to remember. And I believe because of it. She's 9 years old now, turning 10 in a few months. She literally walks this earth believing that she can do anything. And I've seen her navigate school, and she was a COVID baby in JK and SK. But despite all of those obstacles, I have seen what she's been able to do in kung fu, in piano, in ballet. And I'm like, I think to myself, wow, like I probably didn't get to where she's at now as a strong girl, woman until maybe my mid 30s, and she's 9. And I think that's the beauty of being able to instill in our young girls, in our lives, the importance of self confidence.
I love that quote. And I love it because it's so important, the words we tell, the younger generation. It's kind of the same. I failed kindergarten in the Philippines for coloring outside the lines. And so,
My mom freaking slapped me on the wrist every time I colored outside the lines.
right?
Uh.
So, I mean, I dealt with this till my mid 30s as well. I didn't realize that coloring outside the lines was just a sign I was meant to do something different. And if we just saw it in that way, just imagine what we can accomplish, what we can do. And I think it's so important to instill self-confidence in children, especially little girls, because they start dealing with confidence issues as young as 6. And so I wish sometimes schools had a class on self-confidence and self-love or some form of personal development, because that's actually more important when it comes to the real world, when you're dealing with rejections, when you're dealing with challenges and setbacks in your life, because it's just a part of it. So thank you for sharing that great quote. And in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
For me, it's only because of the journey I've been on where I didn't really have, I mentioned it earlier, I didn't have self confidence in myself for many years. In fact, I actually, because of like a lot of like physical and emotional abuse, and I want to be honest because like I didn't have any, like it didn't exist. I didn't have people in my life to reinforce to me the importance of self love and self confidence. And I always talk about it because it took me a really long time to like push through all of the negative self talk and to push through all of the awful things that I was taught to somehow dig so damn deep to find who I was. And over time, I was able to find that and explore it. And that's the reason why I talk about my discovery of my finding my passion when I baked my daughter's first birthday cake, because that was the moment when I chose me for the first time. And I said, like, I want to do something for myself. As soon as I did that, it was like it made me overwhelmingly happy. And I was able to kind of carry in the world in such a profound way. And being creative gave me confidence. And then that confidence bled into my entrepreneurship journey because I loved it and because I put so much into every single cake and cupcake and dessert. It was so transformative. And then as an entrepreneur, because my business was becoming successful, I was becoming more self confident. So, self confidence comes in one's ability to truly live authentically and unapologetically, so that when it comes from within, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You will make a difference and people will see it, people will hear it. And it almost becomes like people are like, what is she doing? You know, what is she doing with her life? She must love what she's doing. And then you will like very automatically shine as a person. So self-confidence for me didn't come like automatically. It came from really exploring what matters to me as a person. And eventually over time, the practice of self-confidence is something I want to talk about because you have to practice it over and over again. And in your book, you talk about, the imposter syndrome. And, the imposter syndrome is real. Like, it doesn't matter how far I have achieved success in my life, it's always there. But what one individual has to do is go back to what I just talked about, which is digging deep. And no matter how many people try to knock you over or everything seems impossible, going right back to that root of finding out who you are again and making that be the thing that makes you sing, in this world. And for me, it happens to morph through what I do as a minister. It comes out when I'm helping others and I'm serving community. That is when I'm my most confident self. And again, it starts with being authentically and living authentically who you are.
Thanks for sharing that. And, I really appreciate that you're able to be so open and honest and being vulnerable because especially in Asian culture, we're not taught to do that. We're taught to like not say anything, stay in the background. If you don't talk about it, it never existed. But it's really important to have these conversations because there's other women out there who are going through similar situations. And when they see someone like you who's been through that and be able to overcome it and see where you are today, they know it's also possible for themselves. And this is why, for me, representation is so important. I mean, especially growing up in Toronto, not seeing any in the 90s, like I was ashamed of my own culture. I was ashamed of being Asian. I wanted to have blonde hair and blue eyes to feel beautiful and accepted. And, now I love my culture. I love my heritage. I love everything about it. And, Richie, what was that point in your life when you realized, like, especially going into government? I know you mentioned that you just decided to like apply, but what was that aha moment that made you like want to do that?
For some context, because a lot of your listeners are from the US. Well, in Canada, there's about 1 million Filipinos now. 1 million. And we haven't had, prior to me becoming a member of parliament, there was no representation for 17 years. That's almost like three, if not close to 3.5 generations of having no representation for us, no voice at the federal level. And yet we were a million in number. My aha moment was when kind of like that accumulation of my journey and kind of self discovery that I keep talking about. It's when I realized that I had gotten to a place where I had done all the right things in my life. I have the skills and the leadership capability. I was like, okay, I've got to do something with it. And I could have just stayed running my business. I could have, but I said, I'm going to step up. And as much as it was scary and I had it's not like I did like political science or something like that, or I wasn't a lawyer. I had no experience in politics whatsoever. So imagine the uphill climb I had, the challenges I had to even figure out what this role meant and define it for myself. But that aha moment was when I said, I have a responsibility to, given all the knowledge and the experience I gained up to that point in my life, I need to do something with it. And so I had a little bit of like that self confidence in me was like, you know what? I'm gonna put, you know how challenging it is to put your name on the ballot? It's like it's right there, Rechie Valdez. Like it's when I saw the ballot, I was like, whoa, that's like my name. It's really scary putting your name on a sign. It's really scary putting your name on the ballot. But the thing is, the most profound moment was the day that I had won the election. And we were in closed doors. They took away all of our cell phones. And the way that I found out that I won was my sister and my team entered the room where my family and I were all waiting, and they had a sign, and on the board it said Herstory. And then I knew, and of course we all went into tears. But the aha moment was when all that sacrifice and hard work, 36 days of campaigning really paid off when you put your name on the ballot and you realize people actually can stand behind you and believe in you. And that has, again, also continued to develop my self confidence because I'm like, okay, I got it. I got this far. So what more can I do? And it is a responsibility that I take so seriously because my riding, Mississauga Streetsville, my constituents believe in me. The community believes in me. And so I need to carry that responsibility each and every day.
I love your story. I love that you mentioned, you weren't a lawyer, you didn't take political science. And for some people that they might think of that as a limitation. It's like, I know nothing about politics, I'm not going to go into it. But you're like, I have the capabilities and skills. And, as men do that, they might not know everything, but they know that
All the time, Sheena. Like all the time. I don't get it.
men will figure it out, right? Like men will figure it out. So as women, we are more than capable. Like writing a book was not my thing either. I didn't take any writing classes. I took ESL classes coming to this country. I mean, English wasn't even my first language, but it's like if you know you can do it, you'll find a way to do it. And I love that you mentioned that. You just went for it. You figured it out. You won the race, and then now you're the minister of small business in Canada, which is a huge thing. And I know we're talking about Filipino American History Month, but Canada's in North America, so it counts. And I love it because we just need more stories like this where it's like you don't always have to know everything. You just have to know you're capable and you will figure it out. And because of that, what's your life been like now?
It's so amazing. So I kind of want to share the impact of like representation, what it means, but also what it has done for me. So I had tabled my private members bill in the House a couple years ago, and I tabled the private members bill to designate November 19 as National Women's Entrepreneurship Day. It's just like being able to have a voice and like make change and the beauty with politics is like, aside from the drama, I mean, you can really, like, from a policy perspective, you can really impact policy in such amazing ways. One example of that is I told you about my journey is to struggle. Same with an entrepreneur, like as an entrepreneur, my parents actually were like, you are crazy, Richie. Why the heck would you do something when you already have a perfect 9 to 5 job, benefits, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have support really when I was an entrepreneur. I had to like dig even deeper and like figure it all out. But here in Canada, we launched our women entrepreneurship strategy since 2018. This strategy is focused on empowering women and ensuring that we're leveling the playing field. We just talked about it. Like it's so much easier for men and for women, it's so much more challenging. So our women entrepreneurship strategy allows women to have access to loans through our women entrepreneurship loan fund. We've invested in the ecosystem across Canada, which basically coast to coast, it doesn't matter where you live, you'll have an ecosystem partner there to help you in your journey. So if you have challenges with wondering what to do with the money, creating your business plan, building networking opportunities. There's so much that I've seen transform. And now when I look at the women entrepreneurship access that you have across Canada, it has been transformative. $7 billion investing in women to empower them to choose, the career that they want. And we also have $10 a day childcare. So it's actually affordable for women to then choose whether they want to like pursue their career or whether they want to become an entrepreneur. And that's how important it is to have women or diverse voices in policy making places, because you can actually affect change. And I've seen firsthand what that's done. And then if you think about, I told you I started my entrepreneurship journey mid 30s. We're investing in young entrepreneurs through Futurepreneur Canada. So whether you're aged 18 to 39, imagine you can get the type of funding that you need and the type of mentorship and support to actually help you in that journey. And I'm like, Sheena, where was this? Right? I'm like, imagine what entrepreneurs have access to now. We have changed that. And it's been amazing to watch. I mean, I think you've seen me in my journey. It's like I share the stories of how much this has impacted people's lives. Ultimately, it creates jobs in this country. It helps empower families, and it really builds our economy because 98% of all businesses are small businesses.
I love everything that you've created. And, in my next book that's coming out on next year, I write about what the importance of having more women in government positions because of the things that you're doing, helping women get the level playing field, because unfortunately, there's still countries in this world where women are silenced. Like you look at Afghanistan, the Taliban has taken over. Women aren't allowed to show their faces in public or speak in public. Now they just passed a new law saying they can't even talk to each other. And so it's like a big deal, right? Because if one country can do this, imagine how many other countries would follow suit. And this is why, women like you is so important, because you're creating that change that really affects women for the better, to show them their capabilities, to help them create a life that they want, to have financial independence, because it's so important. I mean, especially coming from the Philippines, you see so much hardship, you see what happens. And so I love everything that you've created and continue to create. And thank you for doing this. Like, I mean, just seeing you in this position is so inspiring. It shows other Filipinas and beyond what's possible. And Richie, the woman who's listening to your episode, she's in a similar journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you'd give to her?
I'm going to say it one more time. Self-confidence starts within ourselves. And that is a very daunting thing. Actually, in fact, it was terrifying for me to look inside because I spent so much time like focusing on the outside, thinking that all these external variables, for instance, I told you how tough my journey was, physical, mental abuse. I kept blaming this outward, like it was someone else's fault that I couldn't do this. It was someone. So I had to stop doing that and actually turn inward. And that is a very difficult thing. And so for anyone that's kind of in the process of like turning within, I can tell you that it is challenging, but it is also extremely rewarding because as you're looking within, you think about the things that are within your span of control. And a lot of what we have in our control is taking a look at how we can develop ourselves inside, thinking about who we want to be as opposed to who do we have to be, thinking about what we should focus on and like as opposed to what we are told to focus on. Living authentically also, especially as a Filipino woman, I kind of I was really challenged with like three different identities. I was African, I became an immigrant Canadian, and that Filipino-ness in me was highly like, I was so confused. But once I discovered who I was as a Filipino woman through the desserts I was creating and being an entrepreneur, I almost like walked into like my superpower. And so now I actually believe, Sheena, that my Filipino-ness has become my superpower. So self-confidence to anyone is defined solely within yourself. But once you look internally, it's a beautiful thing. And as much as it's scary, you got to like kind of like slowly peel the onion layers to who you are as a person. And as you're peeling away, you're actually going to find and let yourself surprise you. Let yourself surprise you in ways that you never even thought you could do or be. And then once you tap into that, your self-confidence builds and it builds and builds and builds to the point where it's a sustainable place where you can walk into this world with so much confidence and joy.
Thanks for sharing that great tip. And I know looking inward is tough. It's ugly, but it's so necessary to really just show up as our authentic selves, to show up as our high self, to create the positive changes we really want to see in this world. So thanks for sharing that. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
I am very searchable. Rechie Valdez, I'm on pretty much every social platform, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok. Like I'm on all platforms, but it's Rechie with an E, Rechie Valdez.
Thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Rechie, you can also head on over to thetowofselfconfidence.com and search for Rechie's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I just really want to thank Rechie for taking the time today out of her busy, busy schedule, because I always see her traveling all over Canada on social media to share her story and wisdom, especially in such a special month where we celebrate Filipino heritage. So thank you so much, Rechie.
You're welcome. And for those entrepreneurs, happy Small Business Month as well. Thank you, Sheena.
Not a problem. It's such an honor having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. You can order your copy of Asian Women Who Boss Up book by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.